Hello, ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully. People always talk about being surrounded by the right circle, the right environment, the right kind of energy. But let me tell you something brutally honest. Not all growth happens in the light. Some of the most dangerous transformations happen in the shadows, when you're alone, when the applause dies, when the cameras stop clicking, when the world forgets your name for a second. That's when something unbelievable begins to rise inside you, if you dare to stay there long enough. You see, a man who learns to spend time alone doesn't just learn silence, he learns control. He learns how to dominate the war inside his own mind. When there's no noise outside, the only voice left is your own, and let me tell you, that voice is not always kind. It will tear you apart, mock you, expose your fears, question your worth, scream your failures back at you like an unforgiving echo. But the man who stands still, listens, and doesn't run away, that man becomes dangerous. Not to people, but to every weakness that ever tried to bury him. I've lived both lives. I've been the man celebrated by millions, and I've also been the man alone in a room at 3 a.m. questioning everything. You don't become powerful by being surrounded. You become powerful when you survive your own chaos, when you stare into the darkest parts of yourself and don't flinch, when you realize no one's coming to save you, and you stop waiting and you start saving yourself. Alone is not empty. Alone is concentrated. It's pressure without release. It's fire with no escape. But in that fire, a new version of you is forged. A version that no longer seeks comfort, that doesn't beg for permission, that doesn't rely on someone else's definition of success. He creates his own. He doesn't need loud conversations to feel heard. His silence becomes so solid that it rattles weak minds. Because when he walks into a room, he carries the weight of every battle he's fought alone. People look at you and say you've changed. They'll say you've become cold, distant, hard. And maybe they're right, but they'll never understand what it took to become this version of yourself. They'll never understand the price of peace earned in isolation. You're not avoiding them. You're just no longer addicted to their noise. You're choosing peace over popularity, depth over distraction, purpose over attention. Let me tell you what happens when you spend time alone long enough. You stop flinching at silence. You stop running to fill the space with unnecessary conversations, pointless relationships, fake smiles. You stop trying to be seen because you've finally seen yourself. And once that happens, once you meet that version of you who doesn't beg, who doesn't chase, who doesn't shrink, you become a force. You become the kind of man people can't label, can't predict, and definitely can't control. And let's not sugarcoat it. Solitude is not romantic. It's brutal. It's a mirror held up so close to your face that you have no choice but to see every crack. But those cracks, that's where the power seeps in. That's where the real hunger is born. Not the fake hunger that dies when things get tough, but the kind of hunger that turns you into a beast. Focused, relentless, committed. The kind of hunger that doesn't ask what if. It asks, what's next? The world fears a man who's comfortable with his own company. Why? Because he can't be bribed by attention. He's not hungry for likes. He's not begging to be understood. He's already been through hell and came out the other side calm. That's dangerous, because now he speaks less and does more. He observes. He plans. He strikes. And when he moves, it's not random. It's calculated. It's precise. It's lethal, not to people, but to excuses, to weakness, to mediocrity. You want to be great. Learn to walk alone. You want to be unshakable. Stop outsourcing your strength. You want to lead. Start by leading yourself when no one's watching. That's where your empire is built. Not on stages, not in spotlights, but in silence, in the raw, uncomfortable stillness where your true self is either revealed or destroyed. The ones who emerge from that space, they don't come out the same. They walk differently. They speak differently. There's a storm behind their eyes, but they don't show it. There's a fire in their chest, but they don't burn out. Because they've been tested by something deeper than failure. They've been tested by elation and their salvation. So don't fear the alone. Embrace it. Run toward it. Because one day, when you walk back into the world, you won't just be seen. You'll be felt. And not because you're louder, but because you've become deniable. You want to know the truth. Real focus, the kind that makes people unstoppable, doesn't come from books or strategy or discipline handed down by a coach or mentor. It comes from silence. From being so alone, so removed from the noise of this chaotic world, that all that's left is your purpose. It's screaming through your bloodstream like fire. You think the man who spends hours alone is wasting time. No, that man is sharpening his edge. He's not scrolling. He's not gossiping. He's not keeping up with every shallow trend. He's locked in, eyes set, breath calm, vision dangerous. While the world's chasing attention, he's chasing mastery. And that's terrifying to people. Because someone who doesn't need distraction is someone who can't be distracted. Let me say something most people are too afraid to admit. Focus is not a natural gift. It's a ruthless decision. You have to decide every single day that the noise isn't worth your energy, that the opinions don't matter, the drama, the comfort, the petty excuses, they're beneath you. You have to build an obsession so clean and fierce that nothing, not even your own doubts, can touch it. And that obsession doesn't come alive when you're surrounded. It comes alive when you're in the dark by yourself, face to face with every reason to quit. And you choose to keep going. I've had people tell me I need to relax, that I should take it easy. But here's the thing, they never built anything that made the world stop and stare. Because if they did, they'd know focus is violent, it demands sacrifice, it kills comfort. It asks you to say no to parties, to people, to peace of mind, and you must be insane enough to smile while walking away from all of it. When I was rising, it wasn't luck, it wasn't timing, it wasn't magic. It was hours of isolation. It was brutal self-reflection. It was turning down distractions so I couldn't up the volume on my vision. You sit in a room long enough with just your dream, and eventually your dream starts to answer back. It begins to breathe through your thoughts, take over your instincts, and move your limbs like you're possessed. That's the level of focus I'm talking about. Not casual, not conveniently takeover. You've got people out here trying to multitask success, scrolling through 10 paths, touching none of them fully. But the man who can say, this is it, this is my thing, this is my obsession, and then chase it like his life depends on it, that man becomes inevitable, unstoppable, unshakable, because he's not spread thin. He's weaponized. Let me tell you, when you isolate yourself, when you cut the world off for a while, something strange happens. At first, you feel the withdrawal, the silence is loud, the loneliness tastes bitter, but then the clarity hits. Your mind begins to crystallize. You stop chasing 10 ideas and go all in on one mission, one war, one vision. And once that kind of clarity drops into your system, it becomes nuclear. You can't be bought. You can't be seduced by shortcuts. You're not playing games anymore. You're building legacy. And don't think it's poetic or peaceful. It's chaos before it becomes control. You'll doubt yourself. You'll want to run back to comfort. You'll question your sanity. But if you stay, if you lock the door, sit with the madness, and keep your eyes on that goal, you will become a beast no one saw coming. You won't be louder than the crowd. You'll be sharper than all of them. Your presence will slice through mediocrity like a blade. The guy who always needs someone around, always looking for the next hangout, always checking his phone, always chasing the next dopamine hit. He's not dangerous. He's predictable. He's programmable. But the one who disappears for a while, the one who vanishes into silence, only to return with something the world can't ignore it, that one terrifies the weak. Because you can't manipulate someone who found power in isolation. You see, in the absence of noise, your focus becomes a weapon. And once it's sharp, you start cutting through life like a ghost. Quiet, precise, deadly. No one sees you coming. Because while they were distracted, you were working. While they laughed, you planned. While they settled, you evolved. And when you finally show up, it's not noise, it's impact. So if you want to be unstoppable, if you want your work to punch through the world like a bullet through glass, get alone. Shut the doors, turn off the world. Not forever, just long enough to lock in, to tunnel your vision so deep that nothing can shake it. Where giants are born, that's where revolutions begin. In silence, in madness, in focus that doesn't blink. You want to know what makes a man truly dangerous? It's not his muscles, not his money, not even his intelligence. It's his independence, his mental detachment, his ability to walk alone, without flinching, out begging, without apologizing. Because the moment a man stops needing validation, the world loses its grip on him. He becomes untouchable, not in a loud, arrogant way, but in a calm, terrifying, unmovable way. You see, when you spend enough time alone, you stop craving approval. And when you stop craving approval, people lose their power over you. Suddenly, their opinions bounce off you like bullets off steel. Their games stop working. Their silence doesn't scare you. Their attention doesn't excite you. They can't dangle anything over your head anymore because you've already given yourself everything they could ever offer. That's what happens when a man builds his own world in solitude. He becomes immune to manipulation. People try to use your emotions against you. They offer love like it's a leash. They give you attention like it's currency. And you take it because you're starving, because you've never tasted the power of standing alone. But the man who's been along long enough, he's no longer hungry for scraps. He feeds on purpose. He's full of his own fire. You can't buy that kind of man. You can't trick him, trap him, or tame him. He sees through smiles, reads the silence, and moves with a mind that's already been tested by isolation. I've seen the difference. I've felt it in myself. There was a time when the applause was everything. When being liked was a currency I couldn't live without. But that kind of life, it's a prison disguised as success. You're only free until someone disapproves. You're only powerful until someone ignores you. That's not freedom. That's slavery wearing a crown. And one day I decided I'm not going to live like that. I locked myself away from the noise, shut down the need to be understood, and I started rebuilding myself from silence. And when I came out of that place, I wasn't the same. Because when you strip away the noise, you meet the real you. Not the one crafted for others, not the one shaped by compliments or criticism, but the raw, brutal, undeniable you. And when you know that version of yourself, you stop flinching. You stop explaining. You stop playing games that don't pay you in growth. That's what makes you powerful. Not what you show the world, but what the world can no longer take away from you. People hate that. They hate when you no longer react. They hate when their guilt trips don't shake you. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're cold, detached. But what they're really saying is this: you're no longer under my control. That's the threat. That's what makes solitude so lethal. It turns you from someone they can manipulate into someone they can only watch in frustration. You stop arguing. You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing people who never cared in the first place. Because now you see through the performance. You see that most people don't love you. They love the control they have when you care too much. And once you stop caring like a puppet, once you start walking with purpose instead of desperation, they panic. Because you no longer respond the way they expect. You're no longer programmable. When you've been alone, truly alone, not for a weekend, not for attention, but for growth, you don't just become mentally strong. You become emotionally armored. You don't need their compliments, so their insults mean nothing. You don't need their time, so their absence isn't punishment. You don't need their approval, so their judgment becomes white noise. And when they try to play the same old tricks, when they try to make you feel small, forgotten, replaceable, you smile. Because you've already faced the storm inside, and nothing they do compares to the war you've already survived. You become unshakable. You become that man who speaks less, but means every word. That man who doesn't show off, but dominates quietly. That man who doesn't need to be loved by many, because he respects himself more than any crowd ever could. And once you become that man, no one can touch you. You don't rise by being agreeable. You rise by being unbreakable. And you don't become unbreakable by being surrounded. You become unbreakable when you're alone. When you've had conversations with your pain. When you've stared your fears in the face and didn't blink. When you've been abandoned and still didn't abandon yourself, that's when the chains fall off. That's when you stop being a servant to everyone else's approval. That's when you become your own weapon. And I swear to you, once you taste that freedom, once you feel what it's like to not be controlled by anyone, not because you're rebellious, but because you're complete, you never go back, you won't. Because that kind of power, it's addictive, it's clean, it's absolute, it doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you solid. You move with clarity, you speak with certainty. You walk like a man who's already lost everything, built it all back with his bare hands. They can try to shame you, try to tempt you, try to distract you. But none of it works anymore. Because when you become immune to manipulation, you become the most dangerous version of yourself. The version that doesn't beg, doesn't flinch, and never gets played. There comes a moment in every man's life where he has to make a choice. Not between good and evil, not between right and wrong, but between his own voice and the voice of the world. And let me tell you something most won't. If you don't learn to hear your own voice in the chaos, you will drown in the opinions of people who have no idea who you really are. Because out there it's loud. Everyone's got something to say. Everyone's got advice, rules, judgments, timelines, expectations, and they'll throw all of it on your back like chains if you let them. But the man who spends time alone, he doesn't just find silence. He finds something far more dangerous. He finds clarity. He hears a voice that doesn't change with trends, that doesn't stutter with fear, that doesn't shrink under pressure. He hears himself, the real self, the self that doesn't care if he's liked, the self that doesn't wait for applause, the self that already knows the truth before the world confirms it. That's not confidence. That's internal power. That's the voice people spend their whole lives trying to ignore because it terrifies them. It tells them what they must do, not what's safe to do. You think you're free, but look closer. Most people aren't living, they're performing. They're trapped in the loop of validation, approval, applause, likes, retweets, attention, acceptance. They don't move unless they're told to. They don't believe unless someone else agrees. They don't think unless the world gives them permission. But the man who learns to trust his own voice over all the external noise, he doesn't follow the map. He burns it and builds his own. You want to know what that feels like? It feels like war. At first, it's a storm inside your mind. You question everything because now you're listening to something raw, something primal. That voice doesn't whisper comfort. It screams truth. It tells you who's fake in your life. It tells you what dreams you buried to fit in. It tells you where you're lying to yourself just to survive. And that truth, it burns. It shatters illusions. It doesn't care about your image. It cares about your evolution. When I started listening to my own voice, everything changed. People thought I lost my mind. They said I was becoming arrogant, distant, unrelatable. No, I was becoming free. I was unplugging from their expectations. I was disconnecting from the pressure to be who they wanted and reconnecting to who I actually was. That voice inside me. It didn't care about being accepted. It cared about being real. And once I gave it control, my entire life caught fire. Let me tell you, it's not easy because the world is relentless. It will scream louder every time you try to step away from its grip. It will send people, sometimes even the ones you love, to question your path, to guilt you back into conformity. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're wrong. But the truth is, they're afraid of what you might become if you stop listening to them. Because once you do, once you lock into that inner frequency, you're no longer predictable. You're no longer manageable. You're no longer theirs. You stop asking if you're good enough. You know you are. You stop waiting for someone to tell you it's your time. You decide it is. You stop hesitating, second guessing, watering yourself down. Because that voice inside doesn't deal in fear. It deals in certainty. It doesn't beg for permission. It commands movement. And once you let it lead, your whole energy shifts. You walk different, talk different. You don't speak to be understood. You speak because your truth is non-negotiable. That intimidates people. But that also builds legacy. The man who trusts his inner voice becomes a force that can't be bought, broken, or blinded. He doesn't follow trends, he sets them. He doesn't need motivation. He is motivation. He walks into a room and you feel it. That energy, that calm, that presence. It's not ego, it's alignment. It's the calm of a man who doesn't need the crowd because he's already heard the only voice that matters. His own. You want to build an unshakable life? Then stop outsourcing your direction. Stop waiting for signs from a world that's too confused to even guide itself. Go into the silence. Sit with your fears. Let your minds fight. And wait. Just wait long enough until the noise fades, until all the fake voices melt. And then you'll hear it. That voice. That raw, merciless, honest, unfiltered inner command that knows exactly what you were born to do. And when you hear it, don't negotiate with it. Obey it. Because that voice, that's the voice that makes you build when no one believes. That makes you stand when the world wants you to crawl. That makes you walk away from applause just to stay loyal to your soul. That voice won't make you popular. It won't make you comfortable. It will make you legendary, but only if you have the guts to trust it more than the world around you. You can keep living by the noise it, or you can silence it once and for all. And once you do, once you finally surrender to quiet power burning inside you, you become the kind of man no one saw coming, because the loudest men are easy to track, but the silent ones, the ones who move from inner command, they don't just change their lives, they change the world. There's a different kind of man walking this earth. You won't find him begging for approval. You won't catch him seeking shelter in people's opinions. You won't see him adjusting his fire to make others comfortable. No, this man has walked through the inferno of solitude, and he came back with something you can't teach, you can't fake, you can't break. A mind that's completely impossible to influence. You know what that really means? It means the word no longer has access to the control panel in his head. The buttons don't work anymore. The tricks, the traps, the emotional blackmail, the manipulation, the noise, it all bounces off him like paper bullets. He doesn't move because someone said so. He doesn't bend because the crowd demands it. He doesn't sell pieces of his identity to fit in. His mind has become its own fortress, a weaponized palace where every thought is chosen, not inherited. You can't buy a man like that. You can't seduce him with attention or scare him with silence. You can't gaslight him into guilt or distract him with flattery. Because he's been to war with himself. He's dissected his own insecurities. He's confronted the lies he used to believe, the illusions he once worshipped. And in that brutal war inside his own head, he didn't ask for backup. He didn't run. He sat in the middle of it all, alone, and built his kingdom thought by truth by truth. Most people are slaves in their own minds, slaves to public opinion, to trends, to fear of being misunderstood. They are programmable. All it takes is a little pressure, a little fear, a little shame, and they fold. But the man who built his mind alone, he doesn't fold, he calculates. He listens without absorbing, he watches without reacting, he thinks with precision, not panic. You can throw the entire world's noise at him, and all you'll get is stillness. I've lived in the spotlight. I've heard every opinion you can imagine. I've seen people lift me with praise and try to destroy me with lies. And I'll tell you this, if I didn't build a mind of my own, I'd have broken 1,000 times. You think strength is shouting louder than your critics? No. Real strength is hearing them and not giving a damn. Real power is letting them talk while you keep building. And to do that, your mind has to be yours, not theirs. Not borrowed. Yours. You have to understand how rare that is, because we live in a time where everybody wants to influence you. Social media, news, trends, family. Everyone's trying to download their fear into your head. Everyone's trying to mold you into something safe, predictable, obedient. But the dangerous man, the man who thinks for himself, he's unpredictable. He's a glitch in the system. You can't guide him with propaganda. You can't lure him into comfort zones, because he's not running from anything anymore. His mind has been tested, sharpened, forged in fire. That man isn't influenced, he influences. He becomes the gravity in every room. Why? Because while everyone else is reacting, he's creating. While others panic, he plans. While they conform, he chooses. He doesn't need to scream to be heard. His silence alone sends a message. Because that silence, it comes from knowing, from a mind that isn't polluted with doubt, neediness, confusion. He's not seeking identity, he knows who he is. And when you know who you are, no one can use you against yourself. That's what this world is afraid of. Not loud people, not violent people, but still focused, self-governing minds. That's the real revolution. When your mind becomes a sovereign nation, immune to propaganda, untouchable by peer pressure, that's when you stop being a product of your environment and you start becoming the architect of your own reality. But let's not lie to ourselves. It's a brutal path. To build that kind of mind, you have to break first. You have to watch everything you believed fall apart. You have to lose fake friends. You have to question your upbringing, your beliefs, your conditioning. You have to stand in front of the mirror and admit that half your personality was just a response to fear. Then, from the ashes of that destruction, you build, slowly, with intention, with discipline, with truth. And you do it alone, because no one's going to hand you a powerful mind. No one's going to cheer for you when you start saying no to their influence. You'll be called difficult, arrogant, rebellious. Let them talk. Because the more they hate your independence, the more you know you're on the right path. Their resistance is proof you've unplugged from their control. A man who builds his mind in isolation becomes more than just intelligent, he becomes dangerous. Not to others, but to the system, to the illusion, to the web of control that wants everyone thinking the same, acting the same, consuming the same. But he can't be herded, he can't be bribed, he can't be fooled. He's too damn awake. So let the world talk. Let them laugh, mock, question. Let them try to influence you with fear, with shame, with sweet lies. Stand still. Watch it all pass. Because the storm outside is nothing compared to the fortress inside your own head. And if you've built it right, if you've gone through the fire and refused to bow, you'll know exactly what I mean. When I say this, they can take your money, your fame, your relationships, your image. But they will never take your mind, and that makes you unstoppable. Most people run from loneliness like it's a disease. They treat being alone as if it's a punishment, like silence means something is broken. But let me tell you something raw, something brutal, something the world doesn't want you to know. Loneliness is not weakness, it's not absence, it's not emptiness. It's a forge, a brutal, soul-tearing forge where the man who dares to stay alone doesn't come out soft, he comes out invincible. You know why? Because when you're alone, there's no applause, no one to validate you, no one to flatter you, no one to hide behind. You don't get to perform, you have to face yourself. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because most people are terrified of their own reflection. They spend their entire lives trying to drown that silence, to distract themselves from their own minds. But the man who chooses to sit with his solitude, he discovers not who the world told him he is, but who he really is when everything is stripped away. You put that man in darkness and he doesn't beg for light. He becomes, you see, loneliness has two paths. It either devours you or disciplines you. And the man who embraces that isolation doesn't waste it crying, scrolling, running. He turns it into a laboratory, a war zone, a sacred ground where his focus becomes lethal. While others are chasing crowds, he's building his own empire inside his head. While they're addicted to attention, he's addicted to growth. While they fear silence, he feeds off it. Do you know how much strength it takes to look around and see nothing and still keep building? To not hear applause, to not get approval, and still keep grinding like the world owes you everything. That kind of mindset is untouchable. You can't manipulate a man like that. You can't seduce him with compliments or crush him with isolation. He owns isolation. He turned his solitude into his training ground, his discipline, his dominion. Let the world underestimate him. Let them think he's weak because he doesn't show up to every party, every fake conversation, every desperate plea for relevance, personality. Because what he's doing in the dark, that's not silence, that's not stillness, that's strategy, that's self-resurrection. That's someone becoming a storm without making a single sound. I've lived in rooms full of people and still felt alone. I've heard praise that meant nothing and sat in silence that meant everything. And I've realized what you call loneliness, I now call freedom. Freedom from noise, freedom from illusions, freedom from needing to be anything other than what I am. You think loneliness is a curse. No, it's a gift, but only if you know how to hold it. The man who walks alone doesn't walk slower, he walks sharper. Every step he takes is surgical, every decision clean. He doesn't have voices in his ear telling him who to be. He has the universe inside him whispering what he's becoming. You want to scare the world? Don't shout, don't rage, just disappear for a while. Go alone. Go silent. Let them forget you. Let them think you gave up. And in that silence, rebuild, train, read, learn, heal, fight, grow, and then come back with eyes they no longer recognize. Because now, you're not the man they knew. You're something else. You're the version they tried to kill with criticism, suffocate with conformity, break with loneliness. But they failed. Because you turned what they thought would destroy you into your fuel, into your armor, into your new skin. And now you don't need anyone's support to rise. Now you don't even need noise to make noise. You've got presence, energy, authority, the kind that comes not from fame, not from followers, but from stillness, from solitude, from walking through the fire of your own mind and coming out untouchable. You want to be powerful. Then stop fearing lonely nights. Stop running from silence. Start using it. Use it to detach. Use it to observe. Use it to sharpen every single broken part of you. Let them think you've disappeared while you're becoming undefeatable. People always ask, how do I become strong? Here's your answer. Go where there is no applause. Go where no one sees you. Go where it's just you and the raw truth. And stay there. Stay there until the noise inside you goes silent. Until your demons have nothing left to say. Until the only voice left is your own. And it's not afraid anymore, because that's what power is. Not the man who speaks the loudest, not the one with the spotlight. It's the man who doesn't flinch in the dark, who doesn't beg to be seen, who builds in the shadows with fire in his chest and silence on his tongue. He doesn't flex. He doesn't pose. He just moves. With precision, with poise, with something terrifying behind his eyes, something forged in loneliness, but fueled by purpose. So let them call you quiet. Let them call you distant. Let them call you cold. They have no idea you're not avoiding the world. You're mastering it. They have no idea that your so-called loneliness was the best thing that ever happened to you. Because now, you don't just survive without them. You thrive.